Ever wonder how to travel with your young kids? Well, I'm Allison with Fly My Kids, and today I want to share with you how our family travels around the world with young kiddos in tow, from picking the right destination to building out the perfect itinerary. So I hope you enjoy this video. Now, a little bit of background about us. My husband and I, from when before we were married, love to travel. We both work full time, so when I say love to travel, this isn't a full-time gig. This is just something we do. We save up our PTO, we save up our money, we use points to intentionally travel. When we had our first son, I will say, I was so excited. I knew I always wanted to be a mom. And I think in my mind, I was like, well, okay, that kind of wraps up the travel era for us right now. We'll probably pick these trips back up when our youngest child is, let's say 10, 11, 12, and that'll be that. That's okay. And that is okay. I know that that works for some families, but for us, we decided to kind of take a leap of faith and take our little ones around the world with us, or around the US with us. And I have to say, we have made some of the best memories doing so. How do we pick the right destination? Besides just closing our eyes, spinning the globe, and pointing, which is basically what we do, just the internet version, we use Google Flights. Google Flights is such a great tool when it comes to planning out your trips and seeing, how expensive is it to typically fly to Australia? When are the flights like seasonally more expensive? Are you going during summer breaks? Are you factoring that in with kids? Those things can make such a big difference. And so typically when we're trying to plan a trip, I sort of scour Google Flights for a couple months, just looking for different deals. I will say, although we look for deals and we often use points to book flights, something for us that now we really try to look for is nonstop flights. I have found that nonstop flights are so much easier with kiddos. Just get them settled in. It's a one-stop shop as opposed to having to do layovers. And also with layovers, you run into more potentials for like your flight to be messed up. And so I'll email them over to my husband and say like, hey, I don't know, should we go to Geneva? Should we go to South Korea? And we just kind of talk about it and make it this fun thing that he and I will get to plan together and find. And then eventually when the timing is right with work, when our points are right, or when our budget is there, we will book our next trip. After that, where are you gonna stay? I could talk all day about Airbnb versus hotel. It probably depends on your family size and preferences, really. For us, again, we like to use points for traveling, so hotels oftentimes make the most sense for us. With that being said, we recently went to Mexico City and we were a family of 4 in a tiny hotel room, and that is getting tough. So I think Airbnb could be entering the equation for us as our family grows. So finding a hotel, I mean, many people have their chains that they like to stick to. That's awesome. Maybe that makes the most sense for you. I like to first kind of research the neighborhoods. I'll just Google like great neighborhoods to stay with a family in London or Paris. I mean, truly, it's that simple. And then I'll just be able to narrow it down from there. I find it's easier to zero in on like geographic preference for a city and then hotel, as opposed to vice versa, unless you're looking for a specific chain. My husband typically takes care of the bookings and things like that. And then from there, he passes the baton to me because I'm the itinerary guru. I'm just kidding. I'm not a guru in any ways. And typically there's at least 1 to 2 things that go awry with my itinerary, but I do feel like I've done it enough with our trips that I kind of have a seamless process from how I plan our itinerary. There are so many methods to creating your trip itinerary. Personally, I love to use Google Docs and create a Google Doc, and that way you can share the itinerary as you're drafting it with any other people that might be going on the trip with you. I share it with my husband and say, hey, what do you think about this museum? Or what if we switch this around? And it's just easy to edit. I also have the app on my phone, so that way when we are walking around, I can easily pull it up and see what the next thing is. There are so many ways to build out your itinerary to what is going to work best for your family. Personally, I love watching YouTube videos of other families and destinations they've traveled to and learning about what went well or some of the challenges that maybe they had in a certain location. I also love using ChatGPT. This is one of my newer things that I love to use when building out an itinerary. If you haven't used ChatGPT before, it is perfect to help you with something like this. I will literally type something in like family of 4 traveling to Tokyo, Japan. We have 5 days in Tokyo and 4 days in Kyoto, and we're staying at the we're staying in such and such neighborhood, and they will build out an itinerary. Now, you're gonna need to edit it. You're going to need to curate it to your family. I find that they pack it very, very full, but at least it gets your wheels turning on what are some of the things to see. I'm also old school. I love the like travel pocket guides, to have those. I always like to bring them with me. I think they're fun to like, there's little walking guides in there and things of that nature too. Now, there's one thing that I have found to be most important when I'm creating an itinerary, and that is focusing in on one big thing a day and then building the rest of the itinerary out around that one big thing. Now, you may be thinking, one big thing? Oh my goodness, I'm only there 6 days. How am I going to fit in all the things? You're not. There's just no way that you can fit everything in on trips with small children. I feel like when we travel with this major scarcity mindset, it honestly, for me, causes like intense adrenaline and anxiety of like, I have to do this, and this, and you're dragging your kids around. If that's really the style trip that you want to take, then maybe it doesn't make sense to take the kids on that trip. For me, what I hope out of my trips is that I get to see some really cool sights. I get to learn something. I get to spend time with my family and be immersed in the culture. And I think that you can do that by focusing in on one big thing a day. So one big thing, let's say that we're in Paris and that one big thing is the Louvre. And that's quite a big thing. I would start with saying, okay, day one, the Louvre. That's what we want to do. I would look into whether or not it made sense to hire a private guide. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Personally, I would say I avoid group tours when I have young kids. I don't think it's fair to other people on the tour. You're going to be stressed if you need to change a diaper or stop to breastfeed, or a toddler is trying to touch the Mona Lisa or something like that. So we typically go private guide or no guide at all. It just depends on the circumstances. So I look into guide for that one big thing, if that makes sense. You want to look into whether or not you need to pre-reserve your tickets and time slots. And when it comes to time slots, what I like for my one big thing is typically to have a start time between like 9:30 to 10:30 is when we have to be there. Now, with that being said, you may have jet lag. It really depends on where you are going to be around the world. Like maybe you've been up since 2, like we were in Tokyo, but that 9:30 to 10:30 seems to be the sweet spot for us to be able to like have the happiest experience for that one big thing. From there, I put that on the itinerary, and then I work backwards. I say, okay, we're going to eat breakfast at the hotel or grab some things at the market to have at our Airbnb. I find that eating at the hotel or at the Airbnb just makes for a much easier morning. No one's cranky and trying to like go find breakfast or go eat at a restaurant and have to be up so early. I like a lazy kind of slow morning. And then from there, my next piece of advice that has honestly become like one of the biggest highlights of our trips is parks. I like to choose a hotel that's near either a really nice grassy park that a kid can play in, and maybe we pack like a tennis ball or something we can play with outside, or a playground. And for reference, my oldest son is almost 4 and my youngest is 10 months old. So maybe for the 10-month-old, this wouldn't be as important since he's not walking. But for my almost 4-year-old, going to a park after breakfast just sets the right tone for our entire day. He feels like he gets a say in this trip. His needs are being met because he's gonna need to get his wiggles out. Even our 10-month-old will like crawl around, can swing, can engage, be stimulated by other kids, and just have a really great time. And I normally we'll walk by, get a coffee, we'll stroll to the park, spend 30 to 40 minutes there, and then make our way to to our one big thing. You finish your one big thing, it's probably lunchtime. Of course, many of these museums, they have cafes or food on site, which you could always grab. For us, I always like to have about 2 to 4 restaurant ideas picked out that are within like a 10-minute walking distance, an easy walking distance from the location of my one big thing. Oftentimes after lunch, this is when everyone, including me, is getting a little bit lethargic. Depending on your kid's age, maybe it's nap time. Personally, we love sort of doing like a 1.5, maybe 2 hours, like rest and reset at the hotel, whether that be your kid just like watching TV for a little while or napping, depending on ages. You can put your feet up. I find it very hard to have a full day away from your hotel or Airbnb with really young kids. I think they get really worn out. The oldest one may be walking a lot, and that's really tiresome. The youngest one is probably really sick of the stroller. And so we love doing like a little afternoon, hour to 2 hour respite with the family back at the hotel room or the Airbnb, just to rest, recharge, reset. And that way we're ready for the remainder of the day. I will note, we of course do sometimes take a full day. For example, when we took a trip to Tokyo, we hired a private guide to take us to Mount Fuji. It was about a 2 hour drive there, and then we walked up all these stairs at Mount Fuji. We had a full day visiting this like traditional village in Japan. It was so much fun. It was a full day. We were exhausted. We were gone from like 8 a.m. until like 6 or 7 p.m. That's fine. Because there may be things like outside of a major city somewhere that you do want to go see that. But my advice would be, just don't do it 2 days in a row. If you have one crazy day where you need to be gone the whole day, that's fine. The next day, slower start, slower pace. You know, maybe just be a little bit more flexible that next day, because kids, they have a hard time, as we all know, like keeping up with the pace. We can't just go, 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 go. And so I just try to make sure that we're giving little breaks here and there throughout the day. After the reset and after you get back, you know, you've been to the hotel, maybe someone's napped, or maybe you've just rested and gotten a snack and recharged. This is when I like to have a few like smaller stake ideas. So it could be another museum. It could be going back to the park. It could be going to get ice cream or gelato if you're in Rome. I mean, things that like are cultural and maybe exciting to that location, but that you don't feel like you're going to be super disappointed if it doesn't happen. Sometimes I'll even have a list of like smaller stake ideas ranked 1 through 5, and you probably will get to 1 if every day you're looking at a smaller stake idea, and 5 would be like my lowest priority. If it happens that I get to see that statue, okay, that's cool. If it doesn't happen, you know, no biggie. I don't feel like I've wasted a trip or missed out on anything really big that I wanted to see. When it comes to dinner plans, I feel like this is like the time of the day that can be the most challenging, because we're probably jet lagged, everybody's tired, it's been a long day. So we typically kind of retire back to our rooms early. We either grab a quick bite around us. Again, I like to have like a list of really 4 to 5 different dinner spots around our hotel for dinner. And sometimes we'll even do room service and just watch a movie together, go to bed kind of early, and reset for the next day. There are a couple of important things that you'll want to think about outside of your daily itinerary. First and foremost, one of them would be your airport transportation. Obviously, you could take public transport depending on your location. You could take an Uber. You could hire a private guide. I would just keep in mind, when you're thinking about potentially public transport, how much luggage do you have? My husband and I have been like scrambling, trying to have 3 to 4 suitcases and a stroller, and like trying to roll bags onto a subway. It can be quite chaotic. So typically I try to avoid that, at least for like the airport piece. It's also typically a longer ride. And if you've just gotten off a long haul flight or a longer flight, you kind of just want to get to your hotel and not all of a sudden start trying to figure out a new public transportation system. But that's just us. When it comes to Ubers, Lyfts, or a taxi, or even a private guide, you'll just want to make sure that you understand the car seat requirements in the country that you're going to. Are car seats required? If so, I mean, if you want to use a car seat, do they provide them? Is it possible to get one from a private guide? We have really opted in the last like 2 to 3 trips with hiring private transportation, a private transfer from the airport there and back for our trip. We have found that it's just so much more seamless when we walk out and someone is there and can help us with our bags, and we don't travel light since we have young kiddos. And again, we've just found that that really works for us, and typically they do have car seat options, which is great. You'll also, of course, you'll want to look into visa requirements. Is there a short-term visa required depending on where you're traveling from? For example, we're going to London in a few days, and now they have the new electronic travel authorization, which was a very easy process, but good thing we looked and made sure that we have our documents prepared and that you give yourself ample time for approval for that. The other thing you'll want to think about is simply how to get around. You know, we like to travel places with public transportation. I love, like our oldest son loves going on trains and riding on the subway, so that's always great. Also, again, if there's taxis or you're using Ubers, what's the car seat situation? Are you not going to use a car seat? If not, make sure that they're not required there. Or do you need to rent a car somewhere? All these things just go into ensuring that when you look at your itinerary, you know how you're going to get from point A to point B with your kiddos. When we're about 1 week out from a trip, this is when I really start to like nail down my packing list. I have a master packing list for our big trip, and I simply copy and paste it for each trip onto a new document, and then just modify based on what the needs of that trip are. You know, do I need sunscreen if I'm going somewhere really rainy, wet in the winter? Probably not. Do I need a pack and play? That's often a big question. Or am I renting one from a baby rental and staying in an Airbnb, or does the hotel have a crib? So I'm just consistently altering the packing and altering that packing list. And then I like to start, like about a week out, you can start gathering some things. I like to put our documents together, get our passports together. I like to start laying out some of like the snacks and a few toys and things like that the kids aren't using every day. What can I go ahead and set aside? Because then I end up like doing their clothes later on. About a week out, I also go back and just double check like that I have my tickets for any museums or any experiences we're going to do, as well as confirming hotel, like if you have early check-in or if you need a crib, confirming those details with the hotel, as well as confirming your airport transportation. Just make sure that all the times and dates look good so that you're all set and ready to go. Over the years, I found that honestly, I get like just as much joy from picking our next trip to building out the itinerary as I do on the trip itself. I find it so much fun and almost a creative outlet outside of my job and outside of momming. And so I really hope that you fall in love with doing that just as much as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe so that you can see future videos we have about traveling with kids.